when we started, we were thinking we want to do an origin story. That has not changed from the very original pitch that we put forward. What Hitman does really well is gonna be present in the game, of course, because there's some crossover there. James Bond and Agent 47 are very different characters. The pro is that you have a lot of creative freedom. The con is that you have a lot of creative freedom and you have to come up with a lot of things.
It's really quite simple. Bond is a bullet without a target. Let's give him one.
Just sort of where the project began, how did IO go about getting the license for Bond, and was it something you pitched to Amazon MGM, or did they approach you for the game?
Yeah, it was a while back now. Not so long before we announced the project, and we approached them with a pitch. We had the hope that it would work out because they've been famous for not accepting any pitch for Bond in gaming for a long time. I think it's been I can't remember now, I don't count the years, 12, 14 years, something like that. There has not been a game, and that had been a while already when we pitched back then. And so it was a long shot, but we clicked right away. And I think what really made a difference is that, I mean, obviously they received countless pitches for games for the Bond IP. It makes a lot of sense. But what stands IOI apart is that it's a game where, I mean, it's a studio that's famous for the spy fantasy, the creative approach. We had done Hitman for so many years, so we had refined that expertise over the years, and we had demonstrated to them that we could make a game with a lot of elements that we are familiar with and that they are also using in the Bond IP, such as globetrotting, exotic locations, spy fantasy and so on, gadgets, and especially that there was more ways to complete a level than just going all guns blazing. There was also a bit of social aspect to it, social stealth, going to ask for an invitation to someone, or impersonating someone else to go to access a gala. These are things that you can do in Hitman, and that we infused a lot in the pitch to show in terms of gameplay how that could play out in that type of adventures. Obviously, the game's changed a lot since then, but that was kind of the original pitch. And yeah, I think we shook hands at that moment, and we decided to work more properly, on the concept.
With Bond, then, so there's obviously at the moment there's no confirmed actor for the next film. Where are you drawing inspiration from? Essentially, is it Ian Fleming's novels? Is it a brand new kind of concept for the character?
A bit of both. When we started, we were thinking we want to do an origin story. That has not changed from the very original pitch that we put forward. It's an idea that IO really wanted to do, and we hoped that we could work on that. There's pros and cons to it. Like the pro is that you have a lot of creative freedom. The con is that you have a lot of creative freedom and you have to come up with a lot of things. But it was really much a fun ride coming up with the fantasy, the character, the story, and so on. In terms of inspiration, because we're doing an origin story, we wanted to be very close to what's been done in the books in terms of description of the character, who he was, and so on. And of course, you don't make a game alone. There's many directors on the game: art director, narrative, cinematic, and there will be, inspirations from who their Bond was. If you ask me who my Bond was, it will be different from the narrative director or the cinematic director, because we all have different ages and we grew up with different characters. So there is a little bit of all of that infused in there, of course, because there's a lot of inspiration to take from all the great movies and the legacy that has been done before. But this is not what the game is really trying to do. We're not trying to emulate what's been done in the past, but really trying to propose something new, something fresh, and something specifically for the gaming medium. It's very different to make a game than to make a movie, right? And it's not consumed the same way. You don't approach the story the same way. You're not told the events the same way. So it's exciting to be able to do that, and especially on modern platforms with all the means that we have to really tell a great Bond story.
Yeah, sure. Who was your Bond?
My Bond, I hesitate between two. They're kind of similar in many ways, but I love Sean Connery and Daniel Craig.
Very nice. Yeah, very nice. In terms of creating a Bond, essentially from scratch, like you were saying, drawing inspirations to different places. In 2025, how have you gone about implementing certain parts of his characteristics that are problematic today? So his attitude towards women, we saw some changes in the past couple of films as to the way he was written. How have you gone about confronting that?
It's a good question, and I think you were talking about women. Women have always been a pivotal element in the Bond franchise, and it's going to be the same in our game. Like there is like mother figures. You have M, you have Moneypenny. You're gonna see some romance as well, and some interesting relationship that he's gonna have with a mysterious character that you've seen in the trailer as well. I'm not gonna spoil more on that. It's gonna be for later, and we're gonna keep some also under the pedal for you to discover in the game. But one trait that is very key to the Bond franchise, and that made its success over 60 years now. It's been the ability of Bond to tell stories that are very contemporary and that to evolve with the times and with the age. And I think we're doing just that. I would say even the last movie saga is not for quite some time now, and we're again telling a new story. It's an origin story, so it's different at the beginning of the arc of their character and on a different medium as well.
Let's talk about gameplay a little bit then. So we've seen a mixture of stealth and action so far. As you mentioned before, Hitman is very stealth-based. You interact with different characters and learn things about what's going on in the environment around you. How have you gone about balancing what IO I've done with Hitman, but bringing in these bigger action elements?
Yeah, so we're taking a lot of the elements we're, I would say, best in class at, like what Hitman does really well, is gonna be present in the game, of course, because there's some crossover there, but it's not enough to make a Bond franchise. James Bond and Agent 47 are very different characters, and while in a Hitman game, you have to be very calculative. You start in the level, and you're kind of taking your time to identify patterns, and it's quite methodical. He's taking his time, and it's a lot more patient in terms of gameplay. You have to come up with a genius scheme to get a creative kill. James Bond, on the other hand, especially in this one, because he's young and maybe a little reckless at times, it's a lot more about forward momentum, as you would have seen in the movies, and we want the player to think on their feet all the time, and to have to make quick decisions and to think under pressure. So we are keeping you to moving forward. In that sense, the pace and the rhythm of the game will be very different. And although you'd have gadgets in both games, the way you're using the gadgets in Bond will be very different. Will be very much to unlock a quick situation and move forward. There'll be some more quieter moments, again inspired from what we know how to do, and to blend in social environment, like in a gala or something like that, and how to infiltrate behind the guards, and there'll be many ways to approach it. But we've had to definitely ramp up on some aspects that we've not done before at IO. I'm thinking shooting, so it's very... In Hitman, it would be almost... When you get to shooting in Hitman, it's a failing condition. It's like you failed. But in our game, it's very present. So a lot of work has been done on the controls, how it feels on the sticks, the aiming, the shooting, the recoil of different weapons. So that has brought a lot of work. Cover system, all of that. Driving is something we have not done before. We had to look into it, and a lot more agility as well. And I will go into more details now, because in terms of gameplay, we want to reveal everything at the end of the summer. So, but to give you an idea of in broad stroke what the gameplay will be, I think it's a good picture.
Brilliant, yeah. How does we see a young Bond here, and he's working towards becoming the agent we know him as at MI6. I'm assuming he hasn't got a license to kill at this point. How has that impacted his representation as a character, and how will that affect gameplay? We obviously see a lot of shooting and killing in the game, but have you had to adjust for him, him not having a license?
Yes, of course. We are playing with the license skill. It will be a feature that will be detailed more later this summer. Sorry. But yeah, of course, he's a recruit at the start. He has not earned his license. There'll be some shooting along the way, but there will be some rules of engagement. Who can he be aggressive to, and we cannot be aggressive to. So obviously, civilians, it's not something he will engage with. But the rules are going to be different depending on the mission and what he's facing.
Interesting. Okay. You mentioned gadgets before, gadgets and vehicles. So are you able to shed any more light on how gadgets will be used in the game and how much access to vehicles will we have? Is there like set levels where there's vehicles, or can we kind of use them as we please?
So we're still telling a story, right? So it's not going to be a game that's, it's not an open world game where you play around on a sandbox. It's not that. You'll have sandbox moments, but it always needs to be driving the story and helping us driving you through that story. So there are moments that are more linear, moments that are more open, and it's the same with driving. You'll have maybe more moments where driving is more open, moments where we want you to catch a bad guy and it'll be a chase. So that's how we approach driving, and there'll be different sequences and different experience of driving. Again, always in the goal of making sense in the story. And in terms of gadgets, there will be some gadgets that you can use in more offensive way in the middle of combat, and there will be gadgets that are maybe used more in a passive way to gain access or turn off camera or things like that.
Cool, sounds good. Just want to go back a little bit to Bond himself. How did you go about casting this? Obviously, casting someone to play Bond is a huge deal. How did you go about setting upon actors for the game?
It was interesting because we don't have a lot of reference on what a young Bond would be and what was the character before. So we had to, again, a lot of creative freedom, but also like what's the idea and what are you bringing to the table and to a franchise like this. So obviously, like there are some attributes quintessentially British is one of them, and looking a lot in the description physically that we had in the books as well in terms of characters, and someone that had charms, that felt charming, but that maybe felt, not so confident with it just yet. And I think that was a kind of a pillar of the casting, and when we reviewed all the talented actors that could be a voice actor for this.
You said about characteristics from the books. I mean, the way he's described in some of the earlier novels are quite different to what we see on screen. Sean Connery's representation of Bond is very different to some of Fleming's early novels. What characteristics were you taking from the books that made it into this representation of Bond?
I think for the biggest part, his background, his ethnicity is one of them, of course. And the second thing, something that people have not noticed and maybe thought was something that IO brought up, was the scar on the face that not many people knew about. Yeah. But someone in a workshop at IO brought up the scar, and we loved the idea and thought we could bring it. Will surprise some people because you've never seen that before, and we may have the opportunity to tell the story of how he got it.
Awesome, yeah, look forward to that. Can you say? Sorry, I'm just going to check where we're at. Yeah, his backstory. Has there been any conversation with Amazon MGM about where this? Is this a canon story? Is this something that might feed into their wider future plans for Bond? Has that been discussed?
So. It's been discussed, but it's not the case. So it's really, the idea has always been, and to have more freedom also to make a story and a universe, a franchise, a Bond franchise in the gaming sphere that will live alongside everything else that Amazon and MGM are doing, whatever the movies, or something, or any other projects. But in our case, we wanted to have the freedom to really create our character and, tell the story we wanted to tell.
Great. Just wanted to ask about the game's future. I mean, obviously what you guys have done with Hitman is amazing in terms of constantly keeping the game refreshed and updated with live service elements and different bits and bobs coming into the game. Is there any plan to do that in the future with this game? Will it have the kind of lifespan that Hitman's had?
So I think it's a little early to talk about that. We've just announced the game, so at the moment we're going to talk to you about the story, the gameplay very soon, and there might be component of that being talked at during gameplay. But it's a little early to talk about plans for the future. Right now, the team is very much focused, and what I can tell you about is very much focused about what the game is at launch, right? Because this is what all hands are on deck for.
Cool.
And but I think we should talk again very soon to give you more details on that.
Sounds good. Let's just talk a little bit then about 009 and the motivations as the villain, and what's going on in the world at this point. It's set in the current day, but is there anything that's kind of going on in our real world that's been brought into the game? Because as you said before, Bond's often reflected what's happening around at the time. Can you talk about that at all?
You know, the Bond franchise has evolved with the time, as we were saying, and over decades. And some of the movies talked about the Cold War or stock market or whatever was very relevant at that time. And in our case, you'll see themes about AI, of course, because it's very present today. You'll see themes about the importance of people on the field, because I mean, you see that you'll see that in the game. M is also her origin story in a way, the character that we're presenting, and she's rising at MI6, and she has the ambition to resurrect the recently defunct the Below program. She wants to bring it back because she thinks that people have some exceptional people have great judgment, and that's needed on the field, the human aspect of the agents, and that's where Bond comes in.
I don't know if you can say much about the Switch 2 version. Obviously, great to see that added in line of consoles it's going to come to. Is there any sacrifices that had to be made to that version of the game based on the console?
No, not particularly, and you know, like, I think technically it's a little difficult to talk about those things now, because usually like the porting of all the games on all the different platforms is done a bit later in the production schedule. But right now there is no difference between those consoles. No.